Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are now. A very warm welcome to the second part of the webinar on writing a research proposal for international collaboration. In this session, we will tackle the value of an international research partnership post-COVID. I'm Lotus Postrado. I'm the head of education of the British Council in the Philippines. Thank you very much for making the time to join us today. Before we proceed, allow me to introduce ourselves first. The British Council is the United Kingdom's international organization for cultural relations. We build connections, understanding, and trust between people in the UK and other countries through arts, culture, education, and the English language. The British Council helps young people to gain the skills, confidence, and connections they're looking for to realize their potential and to participate in strong and inclusive communities. We support them to learn English, to get a high-quality education, and to gain internationally recognized qualifications. Our work in arts and culture stimulates creative expression and exchanges and nurture creative enterprise. As mentioned, this is the final half of the webinar series under the Newton Agham program. The United Kingdom's Newton Fund program builds research and innovation partnerships to support the Philippines' economic development and social welfare. It also aims to develop research and innovation capacity for long-term sustainable and equitable growth. Through this two-part webinar, we hope that the future researchers would learn how to successfully apply for international research partnerships in the future. At the outset, I wish to thank our esteemed speakers for sharing their expertise and experience as Newton Agham research recipients. So Dr. Devendra Saroj from University of Surrey, Dr. Angelo Promentilla from the De La Salle University, Manila, and Dr. Jopeth Ramis, who recently completed his PhD at University of Nottingham through Newton Agham PhD scholarship in partnership with the Department of Science and Technology. We would like to announce that if you are a leading researcher on sustainable agriculture or biological biomass feedstock, interested in conducting a workshop with an international audience, you can immediately apply what you have learned in this webinar series. We're currently accepting applications for our Newton Agham Researcher Links workshop in partnership with the Department of Agriculture Biotechnology. The deadline for application is tomorrow, June 12, 2020. Okay, if you are looking for a UK partner for your application, the University's UK International is offering their assistance in connecting Filipino researchers with prospective research partners in the UK for this call. So the Newton team will coordinate with you regarding this opportunity to collaborate with UK institutions with the same research interests and expertise. This webinar formed part of our wider initiative to explore and understand the impact of COVID-19 crisis on education. Through the expertise of our partners in the UK and in East Asia, we are conducting a series of webinars on different topics in education, such as transnational education, research collaborations, and teaching and learning. As you can see in your screen, we have the following webinars scheduled to happen in June to July. Likewise, we are promoting a webinar from our arts unit called Lessons on Digital Transformation that will discuss the transformation of organizations in a digital world. Flash on your screens are the information about the activity. If you have questions related to this arts webinar, please contact our colleague, Mark Ocampo, at mark.ocampo@britishcouncil.org.ph. Please visit our website at www.britishcouncil.ph/events and follow our social media pages at PH British to learn more about our latest opportunities that we are offering. Tag us using the hashtags flash on your screen. Again, thank you very much for attending or for joining this session, and we hope to have you again in our future webinars.
Thank you, Lotus. Hello, good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. I am the moderator this afternoon. My name is Danny Son Gonzalo, and I am the Newton Agham Program Manager from the British Council in the Philippines. Same as last time, our session will run for an hour and 30 minutes, including the Q&A part as seen on your screens, and we will wrap up a few minutes before 5:30 in the afternoon. Just a few reminders or some housekeeping before we begin. Please be informed that this webinar is being recorded. While speakers are in session, you may send your comments and questions to the Ask a Question button on the bottom right-hand part of your screens. Please remember to indicate to whom you are addressing your questions to, and let our questions be centered to the topic this afternoon. In asking the questions, you may also introduce yourselves and your institution, or you may ask the questions anonymously. Please refrain from spamming or from sending harmful links to the Q&A. Please accomplish the post-webinar assessment form, which we will email to you 30 minutes before the session ends. And a summary report will be shared to the attendees and to others who have registered but were unable to join. The British Council complies with data protection law in the UK and laws in other countries that meet internationally accepted standards. You have the right to ask for a copy of the information we hold on you, and the right to ask us to correct any inaccuracies in that information. If you have concerns about how we have used your personal information, you may also have the right to complain to a privacy regulator. Now, to introduce the three resource persons this afternoon, the first speaker is Newton Agham PhD scholar, Dr. Jopeth Ramis. He recently received his PhD in regenerative medicine and cellular therapies from the University of Nottingham, United Kingdom. Jopeth will return to his home institution, the Technological Institute of the Philippines, this year, equipped with experience and new expertise. Jopeth is also finalist of the 2019 Newton Prize Chair Award, where he represented the Philippines in a chair prize among thousands of proposals. He will be followed by Dr. Angelo Promentilla from the Salle University. Mike, as he is called, is professor at the Chemical Engineering Department in DLSU. He is a recipient of the 2013 Outstanding Young Scientists Awards by the DOST and was recently awarded the 2019 Newton Prize Country Award for his research that seeks to convert wastewater into nutrient-rich fertilizer to improve farming. Mike's UK partner for this project is the final speaker, Dr. Devendra Saroj. He is from the University of Surrey. Devendra currently is senior lecturer and head of Center for Environmental Health and Engineering in the same university. With research interests in wastewater treatment, urban water management, and water supply sanitation, Devendra also supervises two of our Newton Agham's PhD scholars. Now, let us hear from Dr. Jopeth Ramis. Jopeth? I think you're on mute.
Hi, hello, good afternoon to all of the attendees. I hope I'm being heard right now. Great, so again, good afternoon to all of the attendees in the Philippines and good morning to all of the attendees in the United Kingdom. Again, I'm Jopeth, and let me present to you then my presentation regarding the relationships with the UK-Philippines as an early career researcher. Again, as stated before, I just have finished my PhD in regenerative medicine and cellular therapies at the University of Nottingham. My background is chemical engineering, and I am currently now teaching at the Department of Chemical Engineering at the Technological Institute of the Philippines. And the talk that I'm going to do today is specifically about those who are into early career researchers. I mean, from my master's to my PhD, and how did I establish the connections? And this may actually serve as a guideline then for you. Now, the main reason for the talk is how would you actually forge connections with the UK? We're the Philippines, they're in the UK. How can we actually find mutual benefits to go and proceed with the research? What I did, again, as a student before, I had my master's, published papers as an early career researcher, and then I did some working experiences, and then applied for grants. And now all of these ones are directed in such a way that I may be able to dictate what kind of specialization will I need to tackle. Publication is a necessity with the reason that, again, competition is fierce in terms of applying for PhD positions. Okay. The reason why did I choose to go into the UK as compared to other universities abroad is that one thing is that the PhDs in the UK are a bit shorter as compared to the US. The main reason is that usually PhDs in the UK just finish for 3 to 4 years, while in US, most of the people that I've asked finished with 5 to 7 years. Usually they go and enter from a bachelor's going to a PhD, but once you have a master's, I think 3 to 4 years is okay, because right there and there, you can already establish your research and apply for postdoctoral positions or other related positions. Before I did apply, I actually have looked into what kind of connections do I need to foster. There are some maps available, as you can see in here, that depending on the region and specifically the universities associated with, they do have some specializations. In my case, I have been looking for a specialization in terms of tissue engineering and regenerative medicine, and I happen to find some universities which has specific specializations. Now, on the way to contact these, it's not the university that you will contact to, but it is best that you will contact the professor itself, because it is the professor, again, that will move forward those collaborations and those studentships to the university. There are several scholarships-based PhDs. First is you can have your scholarship by a school-based one, meaning the school itself has some scholarships available. And then the second one is some government scholarships, such as, again, here's the Newton Agham PhD scholarships that I have been endowed to. When you go into UK universities, there are just two things that you should understand. The first is it's not just a prestige, but the most important for me is the internal funding. The reasoning behind this is that if you want some high quality research, then you would really spend loads of money. And these professors, they have a profile whether they do have large internal funding, meaning they can really support your research. Of course, scholarships comes with some fees associated with your research, but usually this isn't really enough depending on the kind of research. And the last thing is actually about the supervisor, because if your supervisor is just a headache, then it's difficult again to proceed with a PhD. I've heard actually with his PhD students, Professor Saroj, he's a really great supervisor. So if you want to go and to do your PhD,
Hi, Jopeth.
yes, okay. Now it just let me present again. Apologies, it's disconnected. Okay. Let me present this one again. Okay, do you see it? Is it seen? Yes. Okay, again, and then I chose in the end the University of Nottingham. So moving forward, the most important bit as an early career researcher is the ideation of a research proposal, in which the idea on the first thing that we should tackle is the main theme of the proposal. The only thing that would matter in terms of applying for grants is if it is actually aligned to the priority themes of the UK and the Philippine government. This is very much important because if you want to apply for future grants, not just your PhD, but on the future part of your career as a researcher, then you should look into this one. Now, I'm presenting you a brief format in terms of the UK research and innovation themes, which are multi-disciplinary. The first is global food security. The second is technology touching life, digital economy, animal and plant health, energy, urban living partnership, and tackling antimicrobial resistances. And these, again, are the priorities in which that there's loads of funding. You always have to remember that, because when there's loads of funding priorities, then you can expand your research indefinitely. And here are now the Philippine government priorities. You can see in here that there are some overlapping themes, such as included here, which is sustainable communities and inclusive nation building. And these things can actually be applied upon with the theme correlated to the previous presented themes for the British government. Now, for the scholarships available, there's so many scholarships available that for those early career researchers can go. You have the Gates Cambridge Fellowship. Again, these are school-based one. University of Edinburgh, of course, University of Nottingham also do has that. Chevening Scholarship also have these ones, and also my grant, which is the Newton Agham PhD program. Again, when you apply for PhD, it's not necessarily that you will spend it on your own, but there are loads of scholarships available for you. Now, as you move forward then into obtaining the process of the studentship, we go into the process. Now, the process is not just literally finishing the PhD, but rather this is, since you only have a limited time on creating connections, then this is the one to specialize the skills as well as building connections.
Hi, Jopeth.
Yes.
What we're seeing on the screen is the UK Research Labs and Maps.
Oh, really?
Yes.
It did not. Okay, I was moving forward actually. Can you? I'm trying. I will disconnect again, and then I will try to reconnect again.
Sure.
Okay.
Right.
So now, can you see this one?
Yes, Jopeth.
Okay. Again, let me resume. These are just the themes which are for the research: global food security, technology touching life, digital economy, animal and plant health, energy, urban living partnership, and then tackling antimicrobial resistance. So these themes are in the UK RI included in their website, and then these are now the themes for the Philippine government priorities. There are some overlapping interests in which that you can specifically write your grants into and successfully obtain a PhD or a grant. Now, again, these are just the scholarships that I mentioned before, in which that I am funded by the Newton PhD program. Now, I will reiterate this again because this is important, in which that the process for you going into abroad, so it's either you are as a PhD student or as an early career researcher, it's important not just to obtain the skills, but this is your only time to obtain connections. It's very important and impetus, with the main reasons that, again, this is the only way that you can move forward to your research if you want to have a UK partner. To go, if you are actually now into the UK doing a PhD or doing a postdoc or a visiting researcher fellowship initially, of course, you need to plan the experiments needed. And the thing about Discover is that you need to determine if the skills are solely available, because with this identification, you can actually exploit which other universities can you collaborate with. In my case, I have been into several universities just to do some trainings. And with those trainings, I obtained some collaborations. Like Imperial College London and other universities in the UK. Again, you need to connect. And then from your data, try to find the niche. Even if it's just a data, it's not just, even if it's not yet a full paper, but if there's a niche in here, start finding collaborations, because your results might be replicated in the other laboratories, multiplying again the impact that you did as a researcher. And attend conferences. Usually these researchers, especially in the biological sciences, don't really end up having the same plan as you have initially. It is important that you are actually prepared to be fluid, and this is the time to ask for the help of your PIs and postdocs. This is also a way, again, to engage postdocs and other partners to engage and to try to draft a new proposal. Because the reason for this is that when you draft a paper and their name is with you as a co-author, then it is very nice to connect together with the basis of your paper. And again, later on to publish, patent, and apply for further grants. I emphasize in here the attend conferences, because most of the connections that I obtained were from the conferences that I've attended to. And how would you actually perpetuate that relationship that you have found once you have that relationship? Now, the success comes with publications, patents, networks of people, labs, and grants, because your mobility will heavily depend on those connections. You can go simply from one lab over the other, or you can apply some grants depending on your connection. UK is very, very nice. Okay, to work with. The reason is it's not just UK citizens, but you also have European and other citizens. It's very multinational in a way that you'll not just have British collaborators or Scottish or Irish or Welsh, but you will have collaborators all over Europe, Asia, and the Americas. Now, who are those people that you need to connect to? Before you do that, you should be able to market yourself, which is the determination of the skills that they need to know what you can offer them. The next is about the resources. Of course, the Philippines has a very scanty resources in terms of equipment and facilities, but we do have some, we have the mines, and also we have some resources, such as we have the natural products, for example. We have so many things that we can offer them that we only do have, and that is again another point of collaboration. And to do a feedback on that, always establish relationships, befriend those PhD students, those lab mates, those postdocs, those PIs, and those professors that you've met in the universities and in the conference, because these are the ones who will branch out later on, go into the universities, be PIs themselves, so that the ease of applying for collaborations will be much easier if you already have established the relationship. Again, as currently teaching, I was teaching again just recently at the TIP Manila. And the main way to collaborate for this pandemic is two things. It's either you can send students so that you can co-advise them, you will serve as a supervisor, or send some prototypes and samples. That one is the easiest and feasible way, and that is the way to continue the active partnership despite this COVID-19 pandemic. The connections that I've made in the PhD are as follows. Again, this is my working stint for 3 years. It's not just in the US, but also I have also some collaborators in Europe, which again, much easier to mobilize because we can just collaborate, talk some grants, and then apply together. The main important about these collaborations, however, is the grants, because if you don't have any grants, there will be no collaboration. It's difficult just to collaborate and talk about the things that you wanted to do, but you don't even have something to exchange with. Okay, so there are some current grants that you can apply to, which is again the COVID-19 LMIC. This is specifically for COVID-19 grant. You have the GCRF challenge clusters, which is again for low and middle income countries, which Philippines can also partner with. And also from time to time, as they have said before, the Newton Prize. Again, it's not just these lists, but there are so many partnerships that you can sort with, specifically UK-Philippine partnerships. And before you go and move forward into, it's best that you look for the grants that you can apply to, email the professor or the principal investigator, and then move forward. How will you connect? By just simply telling and discussing if you have recent results or if you have students that you can send over to go as a PhD or as a visiting researcher. Now, my talk is nearly ending, but I want to say that again, since I am here, I'm opening myself for collaborations. My specialization is about tissue engineering and regenerative medicine, and these are the skills that I can share, and I can help you connect with a UK partner that I do have. Again, this is thanks to the partners that granted me, the British Council, the Department of Science and Technology, and the University of Nottingham Regenerative Medicine and Cellular Therapies Laboratory. Thanks, Jesus. And may you ask me some questions. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Jopeth. That's very insightful. Before we continue with the second speaker, I'd like to share that we are live tweeting. So if you have Twitter, you may tag us on social media at PH British and using the hashtag Education Connects Us and hashtag Newton Agham. We're also glad to acknowledge our attendees from around the Philippines. Good afternoon to audiences from state and private university, faculty, researchers, and staff. We have people who are from USEP Davao, De La Salle University, College of St. Benilde. We have attendees from BPSU Bataan, from Baguio City, from Ateneo de Davao, from PUP Manila, Central Luzon State University. We have attendees from UP Mindanao. Thank you for joining. Pampanga State Agricultural University, UP Los Baños, Compostela Valley State College, Philippine Science High School main campus in Diliman, and attendees from Laguna. You can also ask questions to us, and then in the latter part of this webinar, we're going to have the Q&A where we can address questions to our attendees, Jopeth, Mike, and Devendra. The next speaker is Professor Mike Promentilla from De La Salle University. Mike.
Thank you, Danny, for the introduction. So I'm going to share my PowerPoint slides. Can you see it? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, I would like to thank the organizer of this webinar. It's a bit of pleasure and honor to be here and share our experience while we're doing our research project, which is actually funded by the shared DOST and of course in partnership with my dearest colleague, Dr. Devendra Saroj from University of Surrey. So what I'm going to share to you is I think it's based on my experience as a Filipino researcher here. And of course, my experience in working on a project which was funded by this PH UK Research Partnership grant. So first, let me emphasize that I think the key point here is we have to invest on solving big problems. So in this case, when we try to develop research programs, sometimes we local researchers tend to think those problems locally, but we have also to consider what is the big problem, what are the grand challenges of the 21st century that we need to address. So in this case, we decided to focus on this challenge wherein we would like to envision what would be the future of cities looks like when we consider this nexus of resources like water, energy, and nutrients. So in this case, it is important to see the big picture. So Project NexCities actually is in fact an idea that I discussed with my friend, Dr. Devendra Saroj, on how we can bring together interdisciplinary researchers in order for us to understand the nexus for better water quality, energy supply, nutrient recycling, and long-term social improvements of future cities. So as you can see, when you look at the bigger picture, the grand challenge of the 21st century, you can align these ideas on how we can solve, on how we can achieve sustainable development goals like SDG number 6 on clean water and sanitation. So invest, trying to think about first, conceptualize what kind of problem you would like to solve, how passionate you are in solving this. And this is very important before you can develop what you call research programs or partnership with other potential researchers. And in this case, of course, our story, in fact, is all about a seed grant, which was funded by PSHERG, as this is the local funding, the national funding given by DOST for this UK-Philippine research partnership. And this will be discussed further or maybe explained further by Devendra, because actually he's the one who submitted this proposal to the UK. So the second key point that I would like to emphasize when we try to invest in this kind of partnership is, of course, how you would develop this kind of partnership. Being just a lone researcher would not be good enough, because as you can see, when you look at big problems, this requires different disciplines, this requires different sectors. And as you can see from this slide, you can see that, of course, from the Philippine team, we have several institutions like the De La Salle Food and Water Institute of our university. We also work with Manila. This is the water utility, the in-country partner industry, wherein we pitch our idea on the concept of what you call a water energy nutrient nexus for future cities. And we also have partners from UK, like Dr. Devendra Saroj and Professor Michelle Clark from University of Nottingham. This kind of partnership is very important in order to be successful in developing this kind of research program. So in this kind of partnership, of course, what we did for this NexCities project is to come up with what you call a series of workshops. Why? Because this kind of research program, you need to make sure that you understand the need of your stakeholders. And in this inception workshop, we present our idea and invite potential stakeholders. That was in September 2017. Another we did is to have focus group discussions. There in this FGD, we invited, for example, our partner industry like Manila to know more about the potential collaboration under this research program. Of course, we also visited the site because in this research program that I will show you, we would like to find out whether it is possible to have this kind of system wherein within this nexus, we can recover nutrients from a sewage treatment plant. So, aside from this is one of the perks of this kind of research, of this partnership. We can learn from our UK partners. This is very important because we need to understand a different perspective. And of course, with this different perspective, we can innovate because we can what you call a melding of different ideas. So we try to understand also the challenges in the UK, and hopefully we can contextualize this in the Philippines. And we attended a workshop organized with Devendra, wherein it was attended by several stakeholders and several experts from different disciplines. In this workshop, we were able to understand, for example, the idea whether we can translate our research into something that can be useful as a business model. And we are also looking at as well sustainable agriculture. So this is the importance of having a partnership with the UK university or with the UK institution, because it gives us diversity. It produces more possible solutions that we can, would say, develop to address the problem we have right now. Of course, this has to be contextualized in the Philippine setting. So the third and last key point that I would like to emphasize in investing for a UK-Philippine research partnership, which is also very important, is we need to invest on people. So as you can see, in this research proposal, it's very important to identify the capacity building part. And in this case, for this research project, we were able to train students. We were able to develop the capacity of some young and early career researchers as regard to this kind of research program on water, energy, nutrient nexus. So I would like to mention, and of course, I'm very proud to say that one of our success story is Carla May Pausta. Engineer Carla May Pausta is finished her MS in chemical engineering at De La Salle University. She is my research assistant in this NexCities project, and right now she's a PhD student under the DOST-Newton PhD scholarship grant. So this is very important because this is one way to sustain this kind of research program, to develop young and early career researchers, and of course to generate more potential research projects under this research program. So right now, because of COVID-19, one of our researchers who's doing his BSMS program is Ms. Marita Lopez. So these are some challenges right now because, of course, we cannot do some additional experiments as regard to this project on the nutrient recovery because of this pandemic. So this research program, if you develop research proposals, there's an opportunity for a exchange of researchers. So aside from doing her master's in DLSU, Carla was able to do some internship, you would say, at UK, of course, with the supervision of Dr. Devendra Saroj. So she did well in a sense that she was able to experience this different, what you call research culture, quite different perhaps from our research culture here in the Philippines. She has access to top-of-the-line facilities, and these skills, of course, were transferred. I asked her to use this in a way to train our graduate students and undergraduate students at De La Salle University. So this is also very important when we think about coming up with a good research proposal. So to give you an idea, okay, of the research projects that we are doing under this research program, you have to think in a different way, in such a way that you don't only look at, for example, at your own perspective. You do systems thinking, and in this case, we look at, for example, the potential of nutrient recovery in our existing sewage treatment plants. So right now, our baseline scenario is our STP actually is not recovering these nutrients. In fact, to tell you honestly, just recently we have this environmental regulations to remove these nutrients like the nitrates and phosphates or ammonium ions. And the question is, would a change of this system can benefit the environment, or what would be the unintended consequences? So we do life cycle assessment to do that. And this is part of the research program under the small scale grant, which was funded by, shared, of course, in partnership with UK. Now, the second scenario you may look at as removing the nutrients, and in this case, this is, of course, what is the intention of the regulation. But you would like to level up. You would like to understand whether there is a potential for us to really recover the nutrients and come up with a high-value product like Struvite. So, another part of the research project is to test your hypothesis. Can we really recover the nutrients? And of course, with the extension of this project, we compete with the Newton Prize Award, and Devendra will explain this further, and I think He will also present how we develop the proposals. But the gist of this Newton Prize 2019 is actually, it's another way of sustaining the partnership with my friend, with Devendra Saroj, and of course explore future partnerships. In this case, we extend this partnership to other stakeholders like a agricultural school like Salle Farm. So you might be wondering, of course, I don't want to brag that we won the award, but you might be asking, what is the formula for our success? As I had mentioned in the previous slides, the 3 key points in this partnership, in this UK-Philippine partnership, is of course invest on solving big problems. So you have to really focus on a problem-driven research program. The second key point is invest on partnership. So not only among your circles, I mean among your within your discipline, but of course extra partnership with the private sectors or with the other universities. And finally, you have to invest on what you call team quality, and this the reason why I emphasize that we need to invest on people. So a journalist once asked me after I received the award, what is this my greatest accomplishment, this Newton Prize Award, and what is my greatest accomplishment so far? I told them actually that my greatest accomplishment is not actually the Newton Prize Award. This is just a byproduct of what we are doing right now. My greatest accomplishment is having a team who shared my vision, who shared my mission on this kind of advocacy, in this kind of research, wherein, again, I would like to address the grand challenges of the 21st century. So, one, I would always tell to my teammates, you are safe to make mistakes, of course, and take risk. And don't be afraid to be criticized. Okay, so we're all equal when we discuss this. And I also emphasize the dependability, the structure and clarity, where the team members should have clear roles, plans, and goals. It's also very important that they understand that what we are doing is very important and impactful to society. And I think this, what you call 5 drivers, no, are the reason why my team is successful getting the Newton Fund. And in fact, this is not a new idea. I just lifted this from the Google playbook. This is how they make an effective team in Google the projects. So, to end my presentation, let me ask you, right now, of course, it's clear that we have many challenges, especially for us researchers, in this pandemic period. You may say the pre-COVID era is our normal situation, but after this pandemic, or after this what you call a crisis, do you want to go back to this normal situation? I would say we could use this as a crisis. This crisis is an opportunity, because this COVID-19 for me is just like a catalyst that enhances what should be the future look like, in a sense that maybe it will be good to have what you call a clean air, a very good local food system, and so on. So what is our way forward? I think as researchers we should think about on how we can use this pandemic as an opportunity to change our system. And I will leave it at this time, and maybe in Q&A we can expound this more. But in my case, we are looking at the Newton this project from the Newton Prize to initiate these changes, in particular to the agri-food system, because we would like to close the loop, wherein we can use the fertilizer from wastewater to grow food, and what you could say that hopefully we can develop a sustainable agri-food system using this kind of technologies. Thank you very much, and I'll be open later for questions.
Thank you, Mike. That's Professor Michael Angelo from Promentilla from the Salle University. So we have been receiving a lot of questions directed to Jopeth and Mike, but we can proceed for now to the third speaker. But before that, we continue to acknowledge the audience watching in their houses and offices. So thank you to our attendees from Iloilo City, from Partido State University in Camarines Sur, TESDA teachers in Bicol, the University of San Carlos in Cebu City, and UNDA Memorial Agricultural School in Lanao del Sur. Thank you for attending and for listening to our speakers as they talk about opportunities and ways of moving forward, especially in this time of crisis. So the third speaker, as introduced earlier, is Professor Devendra Saroj from the University of Surrey. Devendra?
Hello, Danny. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen now. All right. Thank you very much, Danny. Thank you, Lotus, for a nice start of this session and giving overview of British Council and its objectives. And very nice to follow the presentation, two previous presentations. And my friend and colleague Mike has already explained some of the aspects of our joint project. As an example, I will just follow on from there. Plus, I will highlight some of the issues, some of the learnings that we had through that project, Project NexCities, and I believe that might be helpful for many of the researchers, particularly early career researchers who might be thinking of establishing new collaborations, applying for new grants, and so on. So I will use this project and the collaboration behind that we started a few years ago. We'll very briefly explain how it started, where it is now, and I will use this as a case study to explain a number of steps and experiences that we have gone through, and I hope that is going to be interesting to the audience. Just to reiterate again, as Mike has explained, that this project started with a collaboration between the Salle University and University of Surrey, but at the same time we had several other partners, two very specific partners, one from UK, University of Nottingham, and one from Philippines, Manila, which is a water company, as your formal partners. But throughout the project, we really established very strong relationship with several stakeholders who have helped and are still helping in the next stage of our effort. So this project basically was a project in which we really established some of the good partnerships to tackle challenges which are really future challenges. So let's say in abstract, our vision was to bring together interdisciplinary researchers, not just engineers, but interdisciplinary researchers and even stakeholders beyond researchers. So people from industries and NGOs as well. And what we wanted to understand the nexus among water quality, energy, nutrient, food security, and to develop ideas for long-term social and environmental improvements in future cities. So when you are using term future cities, we are referring to basically developing cities which are really evolving in every sense, evolving in terms of infrastructure developments, improvements, and also lots of other social and environmental changes that are taking place in these cities. So Metro Manila is one of them. Metro Manila is still probably the most dense populated city in the world. So per square kilometer, there are maximum number of people living there. So really, it's ideal place to kickstart testing some of these hypotheses, that how to understand the nexus between very important parameters to basically plan for long-term social and environmental improvements, because these cities, we don't know where they are going. It's very difficult to imagine what will happen in these cities in 10 years, 20 years, or 50 years. So basically these are our test beds to learn a lot of things, and what the society will gain out of it, what international community could gain out of it. So you can see at the bottom of this slide, there are a number of sustainable development goals that we wanted to achieve through it. We wanted to contribute to it. So number 6, clean water sanitation is obvious one. If you address water quality issues, looking into nutrient recycling, nutrient recovery, to incentivize the treatment of wastewater and improvement of sanitation. This is, of course, the core sustainable development goals that we wanted to address. At the same time, obviously, it is the problem of cities and communities we are looking at. So it's SDG 11. We are looking into improving the way some of the nutrients that are being thrown from wastewater to environment, capture them and use them in agriculture in a sustainable way. Therefore, it is also sustainable consumption and production that we want to contribute to SDG 12. SDG 13, because these are all factors which are climate driven. These are all factors which are susceptible to climate change, for example, food security. So we are contributing to climate change and climate action. And finally, number 17, because what we are achieving cannot be achieved without partnerships. So we set a common goal for us, and we foster partnerships so that we can address this common goal together. So this project, when we started about 3 years ago, we basically looked into a call, and of course identifying call is a call for funding is the first thing before we can materialize anything. So basically, when we were discussing this idea, this call was not open. Basically, we were discussing idea much before we saw a call. So we were discussing this idea in a British Council workshop focused on cities in Metro Manila, where I was one of the participants, and the Salle University was the host for that workshop in collaboration with University of Nottingham. So that's where we started discussing things, and we did not know what will be the source of funding. But we had a very strong idea. When we saw this call, then we started thinking about it. And it's very important to keep in mind that sometimes these calls for fundings, they are not just issued from one funding. And we had very interesting call because in this case, we had funding body from the UK, but also funding body from the Philippines. So basically what we had to do is to develop a proposal which addresses a challenge which was drafted by these funding bodies together. And therefore you can imagine this is not very straightforward task. So this was the first page of the call that we saw. Basically, this was UK, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, a small scale research partnership call. And we did, of course, because we had partnership in the Philippines, we proposed UK-Philippines. Therefore, in the UK, it was Research Council UK, in particular, in our case, EPSRC, the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council, and for Philippines, it's the DOST, which were the collaborating funding bodies. Now, if you look at the aim of this call as funding partners basically published, they wanted to fund 1 to 2 year flexible short-term research grants, number of them, and they had very specific priority areas as well, which I will come to next. But if you look into very specific, let's say subtle sentences and terminologies, they wanted that these research ideas will provide new insights and stimulate creative thinking, but contribute to economic development and welfare in Southeast Asia. Okay, it's very broad term, but this is something very clearly written in call document, therefore it should be taken seriously. And if you look at the last sentence, that research idea had to enable researchers to explore new regional and international approaches. So basically, whatever we proposed to do, they had to enable researchers participating into it to explore new regional and international approaches, not just focused into their boundaries. How to go about that? It's not very easy, because not very easy to make everybody happy. You have a lot many demands, lot many requirements in single call document, and then you have got your own personal interest, particularly your own research interests within your research boundary. So basically, first thing that we have to do is to first identify what is the vision of funding body, or funding bodies if there are many. In our case, even from 2 different countries. I pasted 2 very specific statements to just highlight the contrast between different requirements. So if you look at the top one, so proposals within the themes, so they listed number of themes, but proposals that were listed within the themes, they were welcomed, but they had to recognize multidisciplinary nature of the thematic areas. So they had to be focusing on one theme, but multidisciplinary research proposals, which will basically stimulate new ideas. And development of interdisciplinary collaboration was particularly welcome. So if you look at the first one, this is basically very much into a strong academic research. That's what most of academics want to do, to solve bigger problems, to interdisciplinary research, attract interdisciplinary collaborations, so that they address one big challenge. But still, it's very strongly academically linked. So you will probably work 1 or 2 years or a couple of years and develop some of the research outcomes, which is very heavily focused on inventing new knowledge, producing new knowledge, new ideas. But if you look at the second one, this is asking for basically added value of the collaboration, highlight what is the added value of collaboration, and how proposal will meet official development assistance requirement. So many of you who would know about this, this is very specific set of documentation about ODA, official development assistance requirement, which focuses on mainly economic development and social welfare. So in this case, let's say our partner is in the Philippines. We have to demonstrate how this research has anything to do with economic development and social welfare in the Philippines. So if you look at the first one and second one, it can be very difficult to bring them together, that you want to do very strong academic research. You want to really develop new interdisciplinary knowledge, and then you want to basically contribute to economic development, social welfare in your partner country, in our case, Philippines. It's a lot to do within, especially if you're talking about within 1 or 2 years. Okay, now these are the things that when you're starting a proposal, you have to address. You have to address honestly, and you have to address in consistent way, which is believable, of course. Okay, it should be. It looks like as a reviewer, if someone is reading it, they should feel that what you're talking is achievable and concrete enough. What you're proposing is something that is achievable within the budget and the time frame that you're proposing. So basically, you have to really draw a line to all these objectives that you're proposing, that they are not too much abstract. They are really clearly explained, that if you are doing fundamental research, how much you are going to achieve in terms of fundamental knowledge, and how much that people will actually use for impact activities within the time frame, and how much that will feed into future activities. So obviously, if you do 1 or 2 years of research, that's not end of the whole your vision. Basically, you're producing knowledge that you can show pathways how people can use during the project and after that. So that is what can cover official development assistance requirements. If you can clearly demonstrate that during 1 or 2 years of your research, you have done a solid piece of work, you have generated good piece of knowledge, that people will be enticed to use it in future, and that will be actually a combination of these two apparently contradictory objectives, but they're not contradicting, they are basically complementing each other. It is way to maximize the benefit of doing research. Okay, I'll go into a little bit more details. So in our case, our project was looking into point number 2. So we basically picked up the call document and we said that we are going to address the point number 2. Now, while we were looking into this particularly this theme, because that's what our research expertise lies in, we were also thinking into how to address some of the country priorities as well. So basically, you have to look into clear documents if there are specific priorities for specific countries of the partnership, particularly if you're talking about Newton Fund and GCRF. So basically, if you look into the Philippines, there are priority areas as well. And one of those priority areas is future cities. So basically, what we decided that we look into water challenges, you will look into environment challenges, food challenges, energy challenges, but looking into how the challenges will be addressed in future cities. So we could have done the same research in small villages, small places in the Philippines, but that would not basically fall under the priority areas that were priority for Philippines. So these are things which are very important. Academically, it would be equally interesting to us to study this nexus in a small village. But it is more about what actually society requires at this stage, and how we fulfill the funding body's requirement, at the same time produce body of knowledge that will help many other people in future. So basically, that's why we focus this nexus in cities instead of villages. So and obviously we cannot do everything. You can imagine that there are many researchers doing their contribution to this complicated nexus among energy, food, water, environment. So we had to focus and narrow down what actually we could contribute as a new knowledge. For our expertise, we established that nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus present in wastewater, are key components, and we will only focus on those to begin with, because those establish very important link between environment, water, and food. So nitrogen and phosphorus that is flushed into wastewaters, into toilets, is ending up into freshwater bodies, polluting the environment. If we could capture that, we are protecting aquatic environment around cities. Big cities, it becomes even more critical. And by capturing that, we are creating fertilizer which can help producing food in a more sustainable way, because then you are not buying chemical fertilizers which are being mined in other countries and transported and brought to different countries. So this is closed loop approach, really making water, food, environment cycle very sustainable, and in the meantime reducing the energy footprint of the whole fertilizer sector. So that's how we propose this one, and we wanted to basically look into what is the long-term objective as well. So in short term, this is what we wanted to address through a small research project, but in long term, as funding body wanted, we wanted to show how we can establish sustainable collaborations between UK and Southeast Asian researchers. So with this research, we wanted to propose that basically we can increase our chances of working together, and in future potentially we can get more research grants to basically deliver more longer term impact, and that's what we have done. So if we as my colleague Mike has just explained in previous presentation, that we received Newton Prize based on the complete delivery of this project. So soon after our project was completed, we submitted proposal for the next stage, and we managed to get Newton Prize award and funding to basically show how this research can be applied into the field. And now we have expanded our partnership. We included people doing agriculture research, and we are going to test the pilot demonstration of how to recover fertilizer on a bigger scale from wastewater, and how to use that for sustainable food production. So basically we completed all the requirements of the funding body, and we showed after the completion of the project we were on the right track for what this funding was initiated from the beginning. So now, finally, what I would like to suggest is that when we are writing proposals and delivering research, not only during writing but also actually doing the project, these are some of the things that I thought would be very useful. Common interests are very important. We need to have really the common interest to be able to make sure that this collaboration is going to be sustainable, because if interest loses, sustainability loses. So after one project, you lose the enthusiasm, and basically all the knowledge produced is not being used in future. Mutual benefits are very important, because different universities, especially universities in different countries, partners in different countries might have very different requirements for their employer, might have very different vision and approaches to do research work, and therefore we need to find a way to have mutual benefit than one-sided. Two-way communication will help this. If we really make sure the communication happens, feedback is given from both sides, we will end up with equal participation, which may not be doing the same thing twice. Equal participation would be in a very different way, actually complementing each other. One person is doing one thing, other person is doing other thing, and that you can basically define through clear roles and responsibilities. And finally, trust is very important. If you have good common interest, mutual benefit-based work, clear two-way communication, equal participation, and definition of roles and responsibilities, hopefully this will obviously feed into developing trust. Because if you want to have long-term partnership, a sustainable partnership for achieving long-term goals, which will not be finished in one project, probably you will be doing number of projects in its stages, and will be writing number of proposals to bring your ideas forward again and again to meet the long-term challenges. Basically, trust is very important. And finally, I will end up my discussion with this slide. I would say that while you're delivering research, it is very important to establish good partnership and keep following up. Follow-up is very important to make sure that partnership actually being productive, helping each other, especially when partner universities might have very different work cultures and expectations. It's very important to help each other. One funding body might require a report in a very different form than other funding body. If we can help each other, then only we can say that basically this work is progressing in the right direction. And patience is very important. All of these things require patience, and once you have the patience, reward is always there. So these are two pictures of showing our reward. The first one, which I like better one, Filipino food in Manila, and the second one, Newton Prize in the UK, where you can see myself and Mike receiving Newton Prize, and ceremony where UK Science Minister was present. I wouldn't show the picture of food in the UK. Maybe I'm not so proud of it. So I've closed my discussion at this point.
Thank you, Devendra. Thank you so much. So we proceed to the next part of our discussion, that is the question and answer. And we have received questions and comments from our audiences, and some were sent anonymously. The first question is directed to Jopeth. To our speakers, kindly put our videos on so our audiences can see you. The first question for Jopeth is, in this time, in this time, what are your plans after your PhD, and how do you plan to sustain the partnership with your UK institution in a long-term basis, in consideration of what's happening now?
Okay,
Jopeth?
so hi, yes. My main focus right now is literally applying for funds. As I've told Danny before, I have to redirect my research into specifically for tissue engineering, going into COVID-19 response. What we're trying to do now is developing in vitro models to understand further the infection of COVID-19, and since my specialization in a way is about airway biology, so I'm inclining to develop some in vitro 3D models. Again, that is more of fundamental research but it will help us understand further on how does the virus transfect and kill the hosts. Right now, I've been focusing on two things. Again, just writing proposals, and then the second one is connecting to the public good in a way that there has been so many misinformation about COVID-19. So as a scientist, we need to step up to counter the misinformation for COVID-19. So yes, that's it for now.
All right, thank you, Jopeth. You mentioned earlier in your presentation that you were planning to have more engagements with other researchers.
Yes.
Given your learning then and your experience in the UK, in what way do you think you can influence research policies in the Philippines, or the priorities in the Philippines, in the Philippine government and also in your institution, the IP?
Now, the moment that a researcher makes a study ends up in two things. It's either just simply to the contribution of the knowledge, but for applied researchers, the best way to do that is for translation, developing into policies. What I think is, again, we have to be, I wanted to propose instead for the Philippine government is to restructure our policy making, such as, again, this current pandemic, rather than let us make it evidence-based, in which before we move on some policies, there has been some solid researches relating to the social sciences as well as the academic science, other sciences, just biology, chemistry, physics, and applied sciences to relate into those policies. Again, it should be the results. Again, it should be these policies should be based on solid research, in which that this has been peer-reviewed externally and then applied to be submitted by the politicians. But again, we really have to go on to translation, on translating our research into basic understanding of the lay people, which is some people really find hard to understand.
Right. Thank you, Jopeth. Before we proceed to the next question directed to Professor Mike, may I ask Devendra to unshare his screen, so that I think our comms team is trying to take a photo of our speakers together in the screen. So yeah, as we proceed, the question to Prof. Mike is, did you also have opportunity to partner or work with UK industry through your partnership with the University of Surrey, and what value did it give to you in part if you did have partnership with the industry, what value did it give to the research?
So far, with the direct partnership, we don't have yet. I think, but I don't know whether Devendra is exploring this as well, these industry partners from UK. But for this project, we were not able to have an opportunity to partner with a UK industry partner for this project. But I think possibly in futures, we will consider this. I think Devendra could add more as regard to this exploration of a UK industry partner for this research program.
Yeah, so we do not have UK industry as a partner in the project, but they were always available for support. For example, when we conducted the workshop here in the UK, Filipino participants, they visited Thames Water wastewater treatment plant. Thames Water is the first UK company which installed nutrient recovery technology in the UK. So they were always available for support. But our site was more focused in the Philippines, and that's where we focused on. We also had one representative from UK SME attending workshop in the Philippines from NVH Global Limited. And that's what sort of indirect interest we got from UK industry. But partnership from industry was more focused in the Philippines.
All right. Thank you, Devendra. The question again is for Mike. What advice can you give as a representative of a Filipino researcher in a Filipino institution? What advice can you give to lone researchers who are in the process of building their teams? How do we start looking for the right stakeholders and how to join our research projects?
That's a very good question. Really, come to think of it, I'm just trying to remember how did I build my team. So in this case, first is you might need to be sure about what is your research advocacy in sense. So in that case, for example, let's say in my case, in my experience, I developed first a research program, what I envision what a research program should be. Then from this, I check what expertises are needed for this research program. And in this case, then it is very important to have what you call networking skills, because this will, of course, will help you in building team. In my case, in the La Salle University, it's not so difficult because, of course, I have my colleagues from the Department of Chemical Engineering who share the same vision as with me. So I was able to start building what we call a core team. And from this core team, we now try to invite some other potential researchers, for example, from other disciplines, like for example, from the civil engineering, or if you need from social science, we also invite. Then we start building this team, and definitely you need to attend what you call a fora, international symposium, so that you can meet other researchers. And that's the reason why I was able to meet Devendra, because as Devendra mentioned, this the time that this was the time that I was able to meet a UK researcher who shared the same interest with me, and this is, I think, very important as well. So that I think is the first things that you have to do. One, what is your research program that you would like to envision? Second, what are the expertises needed? And finally, try to develop this network and somehow recruit those what you call researchers in your team. So I think that's how I started my my team.
Right, thank you. There's something that we want to ask you about. What do you think is in as a person or as a researcher who are in the process of building the team? What could be the role of the government, or is it wise to partner with the government in this case?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I think for example, this projects actually, if you look at the nature of the problem, it's very important that our stakeholder is the regulatory agency. So in this case, the DNR, or the Environmental Management Bureau. So it's very important that they are in the loop, in the loop of this kind of research project. So it's very important to really partner with government agencies. Of course, there will, you already know the situation. There are some what you call challenges, because as Devendra mentioned, the different research culture. So you have to really understand their language in order for them to appreciate what you're doing as a researcher. And of course, we're able to pitch the idea, and hopefully they could join in your team. Yeah. This is very important.
Thank you, Professor Mike. The next question I'd like to throw it to Devendra and Jopeth, being researchers from the UK and also from the Philippines. So the question is, how does the lack of mobility in the foreseeable future affect research partnerships of the UK with partner countries, and for the Filipinos working, for example, with UK partners, knowing that Devendra, you have been granted the Newton Prize Award. So how does this lack of mobility affect this?
Jopeth, you want to start?
Okay. So thanks, Devendra. In terms of mobility, the main problem is the physicality of performing researches, in which you need to go to the laboratory physically and you need to perform the experiments, and that is a major problem for us, example, biological researchers and other physical scientists. Now, in terms of just circumventing that, the main course of action that we're actually doing now is simply sending samples and protocols. Again, it's very difficult to perform the experiment yourselves, but translating it by performing initially the experiments in the Philippines, or if it's not possible, to be able to send the samples through a courier, which is now possible. And several researchers have been doing that, is a way to move forward. And at the same time, just by meeting, e-meetings like this, conferences are very eminent. So there is as much as way possible to drive the researchers going into this immobility issues.
So I'll little bit add to that, Danny. Basically, what you have raised is very important. I think it's for any researcher, irrespective of your subject area. And we are at universities, whether it's Philippines or in the UK, we are all brainstorming on this. So it's a very important topic to think about for all of us, how future will go forward. And I try to split in two parts. One is about delivering what you're doing. Other one is planning for future. And they both have very different challenges. So delivering what we are doing, let's say we got Newton Prize, some PhD students got PhD fellowship, some other research grant holders who are doing there in the middle of the project. So immediate challenge for them is to basically not lose the momentum and deliver the research as it was planned. So for that, for physical sciences, biological sciences, there are one set of challenges doing that. Because you got to do experiments, you got to install some machineries, equipments, and so on. For social science researchers, it's about whether you can meet, whether you can do the survey, whether you can go to the field and do survey. They're all basically hindered, and everybody is trying to find a way to not compromise the quality of research, but and deliver it. To be honest, I would say that we are confident there is a way forward, because we have thought through our work, and we will deliver the research, and we will improvise different ways of doing it. The challenge is more important for the future research. So how are people going to write the research proposal like they used to do in the past? Are they going to meet in British Council workshops like you used to organize in the past, like me and Mike met 3-4 years ago? And if that does not happen, that will have influence on the quality of research proposals in the future. Okay, so I think that is more serious part of doing it, because maybe we don't see the effect now, but if people don't meet for next 6 months, we will see those effect in few years, basically. Right. And I think it is also important for you people in the in British Council to consider those factors, that how you make sure that researchers do exchange ideas even if they are not meeting. How best you can to mediate this process, that knowledge exchange, ideas exchange do happen in these times, so that future research quality is not compromised. That's the only thing I can say for now.
Right. All right. Thank you, Devendra. We have a bit of time, maybe to ask 2 or 3 more questions, and let me digress a bit, because the next question is for the Newton Fund, for the British Council. Is there available support for clinical research on oral health? Is this the priority for the Newton Fund? As we know, the Newton Fund, being an ODA development assistance program, definitely supports research topics on medical sciences, which may include oral health depending on the specific areas of the study. So, but in saying this, we are only focused to certain grant research themes and priorities this year. So, that is, for now, this is sustainable aquaculture and biomass feedstock. There are, however, other opportunities. We can help to lead and introduce you to networks and other stakeholders who may look into your research and see its potential for funding. So to whoever who sent the question, because it was sent anonymously, you may contact us directly through email. I believe you have been receiving messages from us, and let us know so when we can discuss it further. Right. Maybe second to the last question is for Mike. Can you, Mike, maybe quickly, can you further articulate the value of the UK partnership, not just to the actual research, but more broadly to your institution, De La Salle University? And perhaps you can also address this answer, answer this, addressing also people from state universities.
Yeah. So I think for me, if the top management will look at this kind of partnership, okay, from the DLS, the top management of DLSU, this is really a very good opportunity for us to how to say improve our reputation at the international level. So I think this is the practical added value when you partner with UK institutions, because as an institution, when you partner with these prestigious universities abroad, this will add value on the reputation of the university. And of course, as you may know, reputation begets the ranking of the university here in the Philippines. So I think that's one. The second one is, of course, as an institution, we could learn more about the research culture being practiced by these prestigious universities, and hopefully those best practices can be adopted by our institutions. So I think that's another point that we can consider. Yeah, I think these are the two main points. Then the second question is all about the state universities. Yeah, I think this applies as well to the state universities, especially the state universities. Some of them are how I would say that in a proper ways, the level of maturity in terms of research might not be at par with the other universities abroad, like University of Surrey and so on. So this kind of partnership is like a capacity building for these institutions, and hopefully we can this state university can adopt these best practices and of course advance their way of doing research in their institution.
Thank you, Mike. Perhaps as a wrap-up question to everyone, and we can answer just as quickly, is a very fundamental question, but will be very much helpful for our emerging researchers. For us, how do we strengthen the UK and Philippine joint work in basic research, which may have been neglected in developing countries? We can begin with Mike, followed by Jopeth, and then finally Devendra.
That is a tough question. I'm also asking that kind of question, even not only this UK-Philippine partnership, but even in our own government funding. Okay, and if you are aware with the kind of system we have, of course, we have a separate agency like NRCP that funds this basic research. Unfortunately, the resource pool is not that much for researcher to really advance his research program, wherein it's basically more on basic research, theoretical research, no? So the way I see it, it's a strategy for me. So I tried this one before, although I was not successful, but perhaps it will be successful later. Develop a research program wherein, of course, as Devendra mentioned, it always have a short-term, mid-term, and long-term. And most likely, this basic research, maybe not most likely, but you just need to be good at telling the story, where this basic research will be translated into something that is impactful to society. So it may not be soon, like a one-year research project wherein you have this basic research. Possibly, if this research will be successful, maybe 5 years from now, it will be useful. So you have to tell that story wherein you develop a research program, and one component of this is this basic research is a part of. Then I think it can be funded by DOST, like we said, or even this UK-Philippine research program. That's right. How I.
Thank you. Those are very good points. Anything to add, Jopeth?
Right. So one of the main reasons, likely because most of the developing countries are actually struggling on doing basic research, is the economic output. If you go into some grant giving policies and they're just going to say, okay, I want to do some basic research, but what is it going to go back to the economy? I mean, what's the translation for that? Most of the fundamental research are actually not seen initially as, again, being translated. Specifically here in the Philippines, we only have small and indeed very limited funding. Now, the only way I think for now to move forward is the scientific institutions that has been established already for both Philippines and the UK is focused on doing applied research. But what we can do scientists is initially perform parallel researches, that when we apply applied researches, for the basic research to be applied upon should be initially be applied together with an applied research, and then later on let us again corroborate and move forward together as scientists to lobby this to the scientific institution, because fundamental research is what drives the applied research, and then later on applies again into the again the economic driven kind of researches. But that's the thing, the right framing is, as Dr. Mike said, is very important. But yes, the only thing that we can do for now is to co-apply those grants and then later on expand those basic researches based on the previous successes of those applied grants.
Thank you, Jopeth. Finally, Mike, before we, Devendra, before we close the webinar, any other thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Danny. I would say this is a very detailed question, and it's one of the core questions all of us are struggling to have a common reply to, and unfortunately there is no single reply to it. And it's not only Philippines, I would say. These are things which have now been very well questioned in countries like UK as well, because if you look at the trend, it's a global trend that people are looking into applied research because potentially they might give some quick win scenarios. Now, just coming to the point very quickly is what Mike said and Jopeth said is exactly what I think we can do as researchers, that we fit in basic research as a part of bigger plan. And that's how as researchers we can do. Rest is up to government and high level scenario to think of how they value basic research, because definitely basic research is the one which eventually becomes applied research and delivers the results that people are seeking, but it takes long time basically. But as a researcher, what we can do is to, and that's what in the UK a lot of proposals which were initially went for impact related activities, they also involve basic research and they were appreciated. And if you combine, let's say we are putting a big proposal and you combine fundamental research as its integral part of it, and then you can drive basic research, and at the same time you can sell to your government that look, it was applied research, but at the same time we have produced fundamental knowledge which has been very useful. That's one thing. Second idea I would give is very often if you package basic research as a part of capacity building, that can be seen more productive. So let's say if you say it's just a research project and it's basic research, it's very difficult to sell. But if you say that it's basic research and we are going to train 1,000 PhD students who will become professors and research in the country, and they will drive the education industry and they will drive the industry directly, that basically is seen much more strongly. In the UK, there are many doctoral training centers, which means they only train PhDs. And that's absolutely fine as a basic research, because those PhDs are your outcomes, basically. If you have so many intellectual capacities being built, basically that is part of your knowledge economy. So that is the only thing I would like to add.
Thank you so much, Devendra. So yeah, we have reached the end part of our webinar, and as such, on behalf of the British Council in the Philippines, we would like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar on writing a research proposal for international collaboration. Thank you again to Jopeth, to Mike and Devendra for sharing your expertise and time. We have emailed the post-webinar assessment form, and we'll appreciate if you can accomplish after the call. And lastly, we will email a summary report of the call a week after this this webinar. The summary report will include the first and second sessions. And lastly, we again invite you to our future online initiatives. And with that, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you very much to everyone, to our speakers and to our attendees for this afternoon. And please stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.